Alright, welcome to part 2 of the graphic design poster project. In this tutorial we're going to basically go through the whole project here, my example in Photoshop. I did want to share real quick back with the type. One thing I forgot to talk about with the 3D type tool is that you can actually click in the stage here and get the options, so you don't have to actually go through the layers of the 3D workspace. So for example, if I click on the type here, I get the little navigator. I can move this. I kind of mentioned that I can click on the light and move this. But if I actually click on the actual stage scene here, I can actually pivot and rotate around. Then there's these little navigation tools up here, like this one basically lets you zoom in and out, kind of like camera movement. So you can kind of have fun kind of exploring these little tools, but they're not absolutely critical for the project. I just kind of want to give you the basics. So that's why I didn't quite go over that stuff in the last tutorial. So let's go back to this one. Basically, I'm going to go through step by step for the whole thing. So we're going to turn off this layer and go all the way down to the bottom here. And the main thing that we had is the background. And the background of this image, basically, if I open up the little folder icon here, I have this texture. So I essentially have a gray value. I tried out a gradient. So it's a good time to experiment with backgrounds and nip with this sort of reddish color here. And then I threw in some of my photo elements. So I have a zebra group here. And these photos, if I click on the zebra here and actually bring it in, you can start to see it here. I rotate around. I brought them in as separate files. So these are images I found on pexels.com. So, and basically what I did is I created a mask and threw in a background color just so I could see the mask real well. But essentially, you've seen this before. You use your mask tools. The object selection tool is a really good one to start with. And then click on select subject, and it usually does a pretty decent job as a starting point. And then you can hit the Q key to kind of see where you're at. And you can see there's certain areas that are not being accepted in the selection, so I can hold the shift key and drag over to add to my selection to those areas. So I did that. I subtract selections by holding down the Alt key. So if I need to subtract a little bit. Ultimately though, I had to do some hand masking. So with the paintbrush, basically selected and 100% opacity with normal blend mode up here. Bring these back up to 100%, 100%. And basically paint away with black, I can hide stuff. And then if I flip these, the white, I can reveal stuff. And then once I do that, I hit the Q key, which is clicking on the quick mask here. And then click on the mask icon down here on the far right to add the final mask. So that's essentially what I did. But I did, I took some time doing that to get a really good selection here. So once I did that, I then brought it into the composite image here. So that's what you're seeing here with the masking. So you just got to spend some time doing that. And then essentially, if we go up here, I added this structure, which is showing up kind of dark right now. But I even experimented with like an outline of it. And it was based on this like rock, which I ultimately didn't use. So I didn't really need it that much. But here's the Wacom Pen, which has a shadow to it. And again, this is a 3D image that I actually modeled in Maya. You can see the shadow versus that, and then there's even the an adjustment layer there. Then I add another adjustment. Some of these I took off and on. Here's the final text. So this group has the 3D text that we went over in the first tutorial. And I did add drop shadow, and then I got rid of it. I didn't like it, but I did add the texture. You can see the texture here being applied to the type. So it's being clipped by holding the Alt key between these two layers, and you can unclip the texture. And there it is, and then clip it again. And this one I used overlay for the blend mode. In here, I have this image of a rose, which it's a white rose, and I added a color gradient over on it. So the effect here, if I turn off the effect, you can kind of see what it looks like with it and without it. So if you want to add a gradient effect, all you gotta do is click the FX icon and choose a gradient overlay, and that will open it up, the menu here. And there's lots of fun gradients to kind of click in here and choose from. All you gotta do is click on the little arrow and open up these little palettes and kind of experiment. So this one's affecting the text right now, but just cancel out. But that's essentially what I did here with this. And then I changed the blend mode. So if I double click on this one, you can see the if I click on gradient overlay, it's actually in overlay blend mode. So if I have it on normal, you're going to see a flat silhouette essentially. So by having on overlay, and you can see through with the color there. So and then we go up past this group, so we'll go past the final text. Then I added a glow effect, and this painting effect was basically just painting with a soft brush with linear dodge add blend mode at a low opacity, so not 100%, probably like 20 or 30%. And as you paint more and more, basically it gets brighter and brighter and brighter in the effect. So I'll add a little bit of red over here. Actually, I'll do it on its own layer here just to demonstrate. But if I keep painting and painting, and I can make my brush smaller and paint inside, it'll get brighter and brighter. And then you can click on the color and choose an actual lighter color. And as you paint that lighter color, you get the kind of like laser effect here. So anyways, I added that, and then here's the figure I added, which I added several effects. I added a stroke effect around the outside edge, a gradient overlay effect, and outer glow to kind of give it an extra glow effect there. Then I added levels adjustment, which darkened it up a little bit and gave this a kind of effect here. So those adjustments again are in the adjustments palette, and the levels adjustment is the second one here. So you just got to click on it to activate it, and then you just adjust these sliders to your preference basically. So I'll turn off that one because I already added it. Then I added another layer. This one was a fish that I masked off and added outer glow effect. You can kind of see the effect there. And another one up there. And then I added this spark. So this is a texture that I found on cgtextures.com. But if I just hold the Alt key on there, you can kind of see the effect of the spark. And I changed the blend mode to screen. I had to mask off a little bit still. You can see the mask here because there were some extra sparks that I kind of wanted to get rid of. Then I added a smoke texture, again from cgtextures.com. Really cool site. So CG and textures.com. You can download like 10 textures a day, I think, for free. And then an extra light effect there. And then I started painting swirls and dither patterns in Photoshop. There's some really cool, I'll select this layer and try it out. If you click on the brush, click on brushes here, and go down to the special effects brushes, I believe it was. Yeah, this is the one I use, the screen tone one. It's really nice. And basically, as I paint in here, you'll start to see this kind of screen effect. And it merges together, which is really nice. So it doesn't really show any kind of overlap. So I added lots of these kind of effects in here. So I added those, some more over there, and then some more thin sort of swirly marks. I use a lot of times with a thinner brush. This brush is really great. It's the Inkbox one, the cartoon one. This one's really great. No, this one. The Ultimate Inking Thick and Thin. That one's really great. And so I drew, and I'm using a mouse right now, but with the stylus, you get this beautiful thick to thin quality. It's just awesome. Very cool brush to work with. Then I added some circles. So these circles are done with a shape tool. So the shape tool is over here below the black arrow. You can hold down on it and choose whatever shape you want. I chose the ellipse. Now you can then paint out or add the shapes to its own layer or add it to additional layers. So if I have this layer selected, you can see this one selected right now, and it remembers the properties I have with that shape tool. So that's what's kind of cool about shape tools. You can always change them. So in here I have a stroke color selected. I didn't have any fill. That's why it's transparent. And then I change the size to this. But if I draw out another shape, another circle here, and release, it'll merge these circles together. They'll become like one. So you can see it keeps merging them together. They start becoming part of each other. But if I click outside of another layer and draw a shape, then it's on its own layer. And then I have to adjust, the size and the thickness and so forth on there. So you can basically do that there. If you ever click out and you ever want to get those options to that layer, like I have that layer selected, but I don't have the options up here, all you gotta do is click on the shape tool and that will give you the options up here to change. So it is dynamic. I can still refine that particular shape, which is really cool. Then I added some extra paint effects there. And then I made a merge copy of everything. That's what we're seeing here. I did another merge, but this time what I did is I painted on top of the merge. So I'll turn that one off and I'll paint on this one to kind of show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to grab the paintbrush here and I'm just going to choose the soft brush here. And I'll make it kind of big. And we're going to change the blend mode. Instead of linear dodge add, we're going to change it to color dodge. With a flattened copy, it's really good. You always want to right click and duplicate the layer. That way you can always have an extra one underneath. If you make a mistake, you can always drop the opacity or get rid of it and start over. Because it is a flattened image, so it is destructive. So this is the way to get a non-destructive workflow. But essentially with color dodge at 100%, it's going to be crazy bright if I paint in here. You can see how bright it is. So what you do is you drop the opacity out quite a bit to maybe like in the 10s or 20%. And then I'll increase my brush size here. But wherever I click that already has light, it kind of gives it illumination. You can kind of see the effect here anywhere where I click in the scene here. And then the other blend mode that's really great instead of color dodge is color burn. It's sort of the opposite. So this one will darken the color area. So if I click in the text here, it starts to darken this up. And you get this kind of effect to happen. But anyways, I did that and I got this effect here. And then I went through, add another circle inside the circle. I thought that'd be kind of cool. Additional circles, and then another merge copy. Then what I did is I added a gradient overlay. So I kind of show you what this is. Just a gradient, and then I masked it so it's transparent. So I'll show you how to create one of these. Just click on New Layer. And it's the gradient tool. It's this one here. Has a hotkey of G. And then you just click whatever color you want in here, like if you want a crazy gradient, or with the basics, you pick the second one as a transparent. So it goes from color to transparent. So if I want this all to kind of a red tint, if I drag across, just by holding the shift key, it keeps a straight line, and release, you'll see the red here. And then I just change the blend mode. So blend mode, this is where it becomes really fun. Ooh, that color burn looks kind of cool. But you basically just go through and find a blend mode that looks cool, whichever one you want. And once you click on one, you can just roll the mouse over it and kind of spin through all the different blend modes. But that's basically effect how to get that. So I had another one here. This one's a little more subtle, but it kind of darkened down some of the tones. And then this one, I added a pin. So if you notice, she's kind of being zapped by her own giant Wacom pen here. And I thought, well, what if the giant Wacom was kind of a small one also? And I thought that'd be kind of cool. So I added that there. And then I added some effects to it. And this is a merged copy of the effects up here. But I added also some type to the shoes here. And so I'll just turn on these different layers here. You can kind of see the type. But it's designed for life, and I rasterized it, and graphic for life, and I rasterized it. And then I just kind of warped it. Added another paint layer, it looks like. And then the final image here. And then the final image, it's subtle. But what I did is I took this image, and I'll duplicate it again. Right click, duplicate layer, click OK. And this final image, what I did is I went into the filter and I went into the camera raw filter. And sometimes camera raw filter menu can have some fun things. I mean, for one thing, you can adjust the overall exposure, so you can make the overall lightness increase. You can brighten the shadow areas or darken them. So that's kind of stuff that's kind of fun. And then I didn't do anything with curves, but in this one I sharpened a little bit, so I had a little bit of sharpening detail here. Next tab over, there's hue saturation adjustments, split toning. It's sometimes kind of fun. I'll show you what happens if you add saturation to the shadow area and then move along here. It's going to change the overall shadow kind of colors. So I'll move them back all the way left. And then in the lens correction, I didn't do anything. But in the FX amount, I did add some grain. So I'll zoom in on the ultimate photo here, but if adding grain is kind of nice. And then the last two I didn't do anything, but you can play around with these settings here and try them out. It's really fun. I'm just going to cancel out. So I'm going to zoom in on her, and you'll see how the grain quality isn't all the same. And when I turn this layer here, now you can see the grain quality is the same in the photo as it is here, and because that grain filter that was applied there, it kind of unifies the surface. It's kind of nice. But that's basically a nutshell. Again, it's a lot of collage, just messing around, having lots of fun playing around with lighting effects. The lights, by the way, they show up really well because it's on a dark background. That's why you have to have a dark background if you're going to do these kind of glowing light effects. If you had a a lighter background, like if we didn't have this layer, ultimately with just the gray, it just would not. The light would not be as bright. It wouldn't be as strong. So it's something to really think about in your design is light and dark, depending on what kind of effect you want. Even the zebra here, I added a color overlay on here because originally he was all white and black, and it didn't look that great overall because there was this big blotch of white down here, and I was like, why is that? It's not very balanced in terms of the design. So now it's a little bit stronger, I think. I can still mess with it. I always feel like the design, you can always kind of play around with it. In fact, when I add that gradient overlay, I was like, ooh, let's try this and let's try that. So ultimately, again, have lots of fun. Turn in this one example, though, your one project after you're done with everything. Again, have the 4 photos minimum. You can have more. Have your 3D type, and then have fun with layer style effects, textures, and creating shapes and glow effects and whatever else you want to try out in Adobe Photoshop. Until next time, cheers.